So this was a blitz game against Rybka 2.3.2, as in the previous and other earlier videos. And this engine was named Angler 01, ANGLER 01, on playchess.com if anyone is interested to check that out. So I was white. This was a 3-minute blitz game. So let's take a look. Well, actually, I can also say that I had a very easy win. The game ended in a draw, unfortunately for me. But I will get to that in about 30 moves. So I played e4, c5, c4, knight c6, knight f3, e6, b3. I have developed a couple of systems against computer chess engines, and this is one of them. And the reason usually, of course, I don't play this way against a human opponent. That would be a rather dull game. And the reason I played b3 here is many entries played g6, and then they put the bishop on g7, and to have this long diagonal over here. So I sort of stopped that with b3 because my next move after knight f6 is okay, d3, but my next move will be, or would have been rather, if g6 over here, then just bishop b2. So instead of that, knight f6, d3, d5, knight c3, d4, knight e2, bishop d6, g3, castles, bishop g2, e5, castles, h6, stops, bishop g5, and possibly even knight g5 at some point perhaps, h3, stops, well, a similar idea, stops bishop g4, but after bishop b6 it becomes even more obvious what black is trying to do. He will put the queen on d7, to put more pressure on my h3 pawn, so I'll play king h2 already to stop that. Queen d7, knight e1, preparing f4, rook f e8, and now f4, queen c7, and f5. This is pretty much where my attack starting is. It's starting to become more obvious. Well, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to stop pushing my pawns up the board and have a serious kingside attack. And we will see how that develops. So after f5, bishop d7, g4, a5. Well, always when you're attacking on one side, you also have to keep an eye on the other side of the board. So I played a4, stopping all ideas on that side of the board. Queen b6, knight g3, knight h7, h4, bishop e7. I could have played g5 at an earlier point, so maybe what I'm doing here is a little bit slow, but on the other hand, there were no satisfactory methods for black to stop the idea, g5. Of course, a move like queen g8 is just trying to control the g5 square once more. King h3, protecting the pawn on h4. Rook goes back to f8, bishop d2, knight f6, and now g5. So after g5, h takes g5, h takes g5, and the knight is just jumping around. Knight e8, rook h1. Unfortunately, my king is on a rather bad square. I would have preferred to have the king on, let's say, or at least h2. But it doesn't matter. After knight d6, my king just goes back, h2, rook a7, king g1, queen b6, and now my king is on f2, and nothing's really changed here on the king side. Queen a6. The computer is just making pointless moves because truth be told, they are no good moves. There's no real way to stop my attack. Rook h2, f6, g6, and now this is very typical to computers. Okay, this would have been lost in any case, but a human opponent probably would have given up here, resigned, and realized that there's no way to stop the checkmate, or the threat rather. So instead of that, knight f7, and here I made a mistake in time pressure. I mean, this was just a 3-minute blitz game, and instead of you know, taking the knight like this. I should have played the obvious. Well, okay, maybe not so obvious. It depends on how strong you are. But I mean, if you're a strong player, you probably would have seen rook h8 check. And this is completely winning. Why so? Well, let's take a look at the obvious move. For example, after knight takes h8, then after queen to h1. Well, let's say the knight. Well, if the knight goes back, then I would just checkmate on h7, and if it takes the pawn, I would just take the pawn, and the rook moves, say, to d8, then just queen h7 check, and there's just one move. King f8 and queen h8 checkmate. There were other ways too, but that was actually saw that move right after the game. But during the game, I mean, when you're this close to beat a very strong computer chess engine, you get excited. Oh wow, you know you can win a piece. You just take the piece instead of just spending, let's say, 5 or 10 seconds looking at the forced win, you know, like the one I showed. So the game continued. I just took the knight, check, the king takes back, knight h4, and now rook h8, and this was, I only had like, I don't know, 10 seconds left or something like this. Queen b6, queen d1, queen a6, and well, the game ended in a draw, unfortunately. So let's take a look at that one more time. Instead of taking over here, I should have played rook h8 checkmate. Soon follows, for example, well, okay, he had another move, king h8, and a similar idea, queen h1, and now the only move, because if it goes back, it will be checkmate right away over here. So the only move is knight h6, just takes. And of course he has to take, because if he doesn't take, let's say he just makes a move like, well, knight b4, then just check. He has to take because, well, okay, if he doesn't take, there's again checkmate over here, and if he takes, again checkmate. So no matter what he does, he might just as well, you know, take back. Right, so like this, and now checkmate. So we saw that there were no way for black to get away from this threat, completely winning for white, of course. But instead of that, I took the knight, and the game ended in a draw in a couple of moves. Mostly because of time pressure, of course. Normally I would have won this game, but when you only have 10 or 15 seconds left, there's no time for that. So again, if you have a little bit more patience and preferably more time, spend a second or two more to analyze moves like this. I'm sure that a lot of players out there, some players probably would have found this move in a very fast-paced game as well. But you know, again, you get excited when you're this close to winning, you know, beating a strong chess engine. So you just take the knight, and you'll either lose perhaps, or get a draw like I did. Okay, hope you enjoy this. Goodbye.